Howdy folks, welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. Hey, on this episode we're going to be heading over to a little shop that I love going to. Now I sat back and wondered and thought about how am I going to start a series on home brewing? Where do you start out on teaching how to make beer? And I thought, well, I guess anybody would normally start by having to get the stuff to do it with. You find out about it, then you go get the stuff to do it with. So what I thought I would do is just take you on a little field trip to a brewing shop. Now this is a little store that sells everything that you need to make beer or wine or whatever kind of fermented beverage you could ever imagine making. They also sell stuff for cheese making and for making soda pop, all kinds of neat stuff. So it can be an entire family kind of thing when it comes down to the stuff that they sell. Now this neat little shop, this is called the Homebrew Headquarters. It's owned by a nice gentleman named Kelly. And Kelly has invited us in to take a look at his store so we can find out just what it's like to go inside of a place that sells all of the supplies for brewing. So guys, I tell you what, let's head on over there. This is Homebrew Headquarters here in Dallas, Texas. Come on, let's go. Okay guys, we're here at the Homebrew Headquarters. Now we're going to be going in here in a minute, checking out all the goodies that they have. And I tell you what, you'll be surprised. All the wonderful stuff that's in these little shops. So if you've never had a chance to be in one of these places, well, guess what? Today's your lucky day. Here we go. Come on, let's go on in. Oh man, it is great to be back in here. Guys, I've been shopping at this place well over a decade, and I can tell you, when it comes to coming to the brew shop is what I like to call it. This is Homebrew Headquarters is the name of this place. What I like about this place is it's like stepping into the country store. It doesn't look like the kind of place inside that would be inside of a shopping center. It looks like something you'd find in the country that gives you that very special feeling. So that's what we're looking at here. Let's go take a look around the place. We'll start with the equipment and we'll move into the malt extracts and all the other goodies. Come on, let's go. As you can see, guys, starting up brewing can be done at a reasonable price, just depending on how you set yours up and where you start at and where you want to go. Now guys, as you can see right here in this store, we see some beautiful equipment. These, of course, are the fermenters on top, like you've seen in my show. There's all kinds of specialty equipment here. What you're looking at there, that is all designed for those who do all grain brewing. And it's a wonderful system for that. So you can go basic and simple, or you can get pretty complex. That one is computerized, and it pretty much shows you everything you need to do and takes care of it for you.
That's the largest homebrewing competition in the United States, single-site homebrewing competition in the United States. And those steins up there are one-offs. There's only one of them when they make them and they mold them, and they're irreplaceable. And the national competition wanted to ask permission to our mold, and we said no. This is what makes our competition very, very unique, and people fight over those things.
They're really cool.
Yeah, they are. They're ceramic, hand painted every year differently.
I'll tell you what, that's just absolutely too cool.
And something to be very, very proud of as a home brewer to win one of those, much less more than one.
So how many years have you been doing this, Kelly?
I've been brewing since 97, 98, and it was a hobby that I've really enjoyed good beer, and I didn't realize you can make it yourself like most people don't. Until I walked into my local beer store and I saw the ingredients sitting on a shelf, and I asked a question. They said, yeah, that's for making beer yourself. And So I went ahead and gave it a try, and I realized how fun it was. And I realized that I could make a beer that I really couldn't buy anywhere, and I had a lot of control over the recipe and the flavor profile that I wanted personally. And that's when the hobby just exploded. When I moved back to Dallas, I had a friend who had a mutual friend who owned this shop at the time, who I've since purchased it from in '99. And the hobby just exploded into a business, into a way of making a living at my hobby, and it's something I truly love to do. I was a teacher, and I thought I was going to coach football and teach school the rest of my life. And I now teach people. I apply my education towards teaching people how to make beer.
Man, that is so cool.
Yeah.
It is. That's a neat history. You know, I was thinking this morning, how long have I actually been going there? I had to think it back. And I've been coming here over 12 years myself.
So you were probably coming here, and I know we've known each other, our faces at least, for a long time. But I know you've been coming here for at least as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has been a lot of fun, and I've made so many batches I can't even count them all.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, that's also why I wanted to invite my audience in to find out kind of the feeling and the, you know, the atmosphere behind brewing. You know, what's it like before you make the beer?
Yeah. Well, it should be fun. It's walking into a hobby shop, and me and my employees are all enthusiastic. We want to teach. We want new home brewers because we know how fun it should be. No one's talking down to anybody. We all started at the beginning. Your success is our success. If you don't make good beer, you're never going to do it again, and we're going to hold your hand and have fun and teach you how to make the best beer possible. A lot of my customers have opened local breweries, and they were customers, and ex-employees are now head brewers at a lot of the local breweries here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Well, I have to admit that my start on this wouldn't have happened had it not been for a lot of tutoring from you guys. You know, and say, hey, why don't you try this way instead? You'll get a better beer. And I learned from those little guides and tips. And I lowered my cost, improved my beer, and am having a great time with it.
Well,
and
you're a chef, at cooking and brewing are virtually the same thing. You're playing with ingredients, and you're learning what the ingredients do. And once you have a good understanding of what each ingredients do, then it becomes an intelligent decision on how to formulate your recipes.
Well, that's true, you know, and that's exactly the same way I cook. Because when you're cooking a pot of soup, you have to be concerned not only with the flavor, but with that acid balance. And it's the same exact thing with making a beer. You have to be concerned yourself with the acid balance on it, because we're adding acid, folks. Let me get over here. Guys, what we're doing is we're adding acid to those beers, and those acids have to be the same perfection that you get in a pot of soup or in some, well, I just mentioned to him earlier, beer braised beef shanks. Oh, yummy. And stuff like that. If it doesn't have the right acid content in it, it goes flat and you don't have a good flavor. But when it's right, it pops and it's special and it's clean tasting.
And one ingredient influences the other one, which could change the balance. So you have to learn how to balance those ingredients delicately.
Very much so, yeah. So your grains affect it, the type of yeast that you use affects it, your hops affects it, and other adjuncts that you add to it can affect it a lot.
Yeah, and there's only 4 ingredients in beer: hops, malt, yeast, and water. But there's hundreds of each of them. The computations are infinite, and they keep developing and crossbreeding new hops. Scientists keep finding new yeast strains that produce different flavor profiles. They keep malting malts different ways to produce different colors and different flavors, different acid levels.
Isn't that how the Amarillo hops was developed, off of the Cascade strain?
I believe that's right. I believe it was a Cascade strain, crossbred.
One of the growers noticed basically what they would call a witch's broom in terms of growing plants. What they saw there was a different growth happening on one of the vines, and so they took that and took advantage of it. And that's just good hybridizing right there, guys. That's all that is. And so now we have this really cool hops that taste similar to Cascade, but has a higher acid content, and it's really good for that sharp kind of citrusy flavor that you get in beer.
Very popular hop.
Yeah, it really is. I'm surprised. Texas has a city named that.
Yes, they do.
Yes, imagine that, Amarillo. Yellow. I'll tell you what, let's take a look over here at the hopped extracts and start with that, and then we'll
The
just
malt
kind of...
extracts?
The
hopped malt extracts?
Hopped malt extracts, yeah.
Sure.
So let's take a quick at that, quick peek at that, and then we'll just kind of move our way around the store and learn about this stuff real quick.
Okay.
Cool. Let's go over there.
All right.
Okay, Kelly. Lots of options on this stuff. I mean, I see all kinds of different ones. And, you know, like Nut Brown, there's an IPA bitter here, a Bock, a wheat beer, export stout. Is there certain ones that are more popular than the others, or certain ones that are better than the others? Or
Well,
how do people choose on this stuff when they're first starting?
Well, this is the easiest way to make beer, and this is what we like to people to try at least their first batch or two, because you don't have to concern yourself with the recipe formulation. It's the Campbell's chicken soup, chocolate chip cookie dough, if you will, of homebrewing. We're going to focus on the cleaning and the sanitizing and the boiling and the bottling. Focus on the procedures that's going to last you your whole brewing career as you get more advanced. So what these are is the easiest way, and they're what they call hopped malt extracts, also referred to as beer kits. So you're actually paying somebody to formulate a recipe for you, okay, prepare the ingredients, cram it into this can, and then the beginner home brewer, all he has to do is open this can, dissolve it in 2 or 3 gallons of water, and boil it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
And they're going to be focusing on the cleaning and the sanitizing and the fermentation and the transferring, known as racking, and the bottling and the capping. After they do that once, the light bulb goes off. They usually do 1 or 2 of those, and they move on to intermediate brewing, which I'm sure we'll discuss a little later.
Right.
So that's exactly what the name implies. This kit right here is designed to make up to 5 gallons of beer. The yeast is in the lid. The hops are already been boiled in the malt extract, and any specialty grains or adjuncts necessary to make this style of beer has been formulated and put into this can. So just like anything else, when you decide on what kind of beer you want to make, what are you in the mood for? I love stouts, I love IPAs, I love pale ales, I love Bocks, whatever. We know which company, these are all excellent companies, but this company may do that beer style a little better or is more popular than the other companies. They each have 1 or 2 beer kits that are by far the most popular ones for those beer styles.
Right.
And that's where we kind of focus when someone asks that question, which one do I want to make? Well, I don't know, what are you in the mood for?
Yeah, what kind of beer do you really like?
I want to make a stout, then we would point them towards that stout. Or I want to make IPA, we would point them towards that IPA, even though each company will make that style of beer.
Okay. Cool. So this is pretty much the easiest way, guys. If you're just learning or wanting to learn how to try this and you don't want to go in for the big investment yet, this is the way you want to start. And actually, this is the way I started. I did 2 batches this way and said, okay, I know how to cook. I want to learn how to make this stuff the right way because I can control my ingredients. And so I learned the rest of it.
And that's perfectly put. You have a lot more control over your recipe design instead of someone designing it for you. Once you understand the basic procedures of brewing and handling the ingredients, you're ready to move on into intermediate and gathering your own ingredients,
Right.
and fresher ingredients instead of canned ingredients. So the possibility of making a better tasting beer can achieve, as you know, as a chef or a cook, fresher the ingredients, the possibility of making a better tasting product.
That's true. You know, and Kelly mentioned one thing that was so very important, guys. Something you have to really remember in all of this is when you're making beer, sanitation is key. That's number 1. Because if you get the wrong yeast or bacteria in that carboy or in your bottle, you're not going to like your beer. It's going to be kind of musty. It's not going to be what you wanted it to be. So if everything is cleaned properly and done properly, then you're going to end up with exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's only one mistake you can ever make in homebrewing that will make your beer unpalatable, and that's not the proper cleaning and sanitizing procedures. Cleaners clean, sanitizers sanitize. You can't sanitize dirt. So we clean, we sanitize. You can do everything else wrong or make a minor mistake. You'll still have good, palatable beer. But if you don't clean and sanitize, like you said, wild yeast or bacteria make your beer taste sour or funky, and it's just not enjoyable.
This is true. It's not what you want it to
No.
be. Okay, I tell you what, let's take a look, guys, real quick, at the next step up from this, which is where we break our ingredients apart and remove that hops that's in the extract. We're going to buy our hops separate and we're going to cook it up, but we're still going to do an extract brew. So we're going to take a look at where those containers are, how we get that, and what we do with it. Okay, let's go over there. Okay, here we are, guys. These large barrels contain that wonderful syrup that we looked at before. That's malt extract. Now, let's think about it. Malt extract. What does that mean? Well, we're extracting sugar from malted grain, okay? Malt extract. There it is. Now, these big barrels, tell us, Kelly, what do we have here?
Well, we spoke about the beginner's kit, which it was hopped malt extract, and when you get into intermediate brewing, you want a blank slate. You don't want someone to have the specialty grains and the hops already in the extract. There's 4 ingredients in beers we discussed: hops, malt, yeast, and water. Well, this is the malt. This is your sugar. This is your base. This is where the alcohol is going to come from, and you're making a malted beverage with hops, which is known as beer. And this is where we stop. There are 4 different malts typically to choose from. There is light malt, amber malt, wheat malt, and real dark malt, which is a way to make different beer styles, and different combination of these, you can make any beer in the world that you want to make. Your recipe will tell you to use X amount of 1, 2, or all 3 or all 4 of these to make whatever beer you want. A lot of homebrew shops don't carry bulk malt extract. It also comes in the cans like we saw earlier, but it's important to note that it is unhopped malt extract. It's the exact same thing that's in this barrel, only you put it in a 3.3 pound canister. So you will start with this as your recipe. We're getting 4 ingredients. You have 1 at home: water. This is the malt, and this is where you're going to begin.
So basically, if you had somebody that was doing like an online purchase, what would they get? Something like that rather than a bucket like this shipped to them?
No, it's not necessary. You can visit us at homebrewhq.com. That's our website, and you can also visit us on our Facebook page. But when you purchase, we have on our website, you can purchase bulk malt extract, which we'll put into a airtight container. And that way, if your recipe's calling for 7 pounds, and this is 3.3 pounds, you don't have to buy 3 of these and waste some malt. I'll give you exactly whatever your recipe's calling for and put it in a container and ship it to you.
So that's why, guys, that right there, different beers take different amounts of malt extract. And that's the reason that you really need to look at it in bulk, because buying it that way can give you the exact recipes that you want, and you don't have to do all of your own measuring and weighing at home, okay?
Once we've got our base malt extracts, now we can, how I like to put it, play around with our spice rack, which are other malted barleys in intermediate brewing that we're going to steep or make a tea out of, which changes the malt extract to tweak it to the exact color and or flavor that you're looking for, and that's what we'll discuss next.
Oh, cool. Let's head down that way. Kelly, look at this, man. Bin after bin after bin after bin of flavor. That's all there is to it. It's flavor.
Well, this is in intermediate brewing, this is your spice rack. And all of these are all malted barleys in conjunction with some wheat and adjuncts like corn and rice. And all of these can be added at different amounts and different combinations to change the flavor of your base malt extract. And all malts or barleys are organized into 6 categories. There's base malts.
And those are the ones that we actually get our sugars from,
That's right. And this is what the extract is coming from, this is where all the sugar is coming from, is base malt.
Okay, and so that's the stuff, guys, that we are actually taking the alpha amylase and those beta amylase enzymes and converting over into sugar, or your base malts.
And in the extract, someone's done that for you already. Now, all we need to do is get what's known as the specialty malts, which are going to change the flavor of the base malt to make a stout or a pale ale or a brown or whatever you want.
Right.
And those other 5 categories are roasted toasted malts, what we call high kiln malts. There's adjuncts, that's your corn and your rice, and then there's crystals and caramels, And then there's some real specialty stuff like rye and acid malt and smoked malt, which doesn't fall into any category, so we throw it in the O's, the other category.
The other category.
And that's what all of them are. Whenever you see a book or anything, that's how all of these are categorized.
See, I like those crystal malts better. You know,
Yeah.
that light crystal, all those biscuit malts. They're just delicious.
And these malts are easy to handle. And here at Homebrew headquarters, we have 4 milling stations. In order to use the malt, you have to crack the malt. When we crack the malt, you're just exposing the inside, which is called the endosperm. We do not pulverize. You're not making flour. That's bad because the outside of the barley will give you bitter astringency if you pulverize it too much. So we just crack it. And you can change your beer influence by different levels of caramelization. Darker caramelization give you more toffee color and toffee flavors. You can get nutty characters. You can get sweet, malty characters. And so all of these will influence the character of your beer based upon how much you use.
Cool. And it's just unbelievable. I tell you what, let's take a real close-up shot at some of this grain so you guys can see it. Now guys, this right here, this is what we're talking about. See how the kernel is whole. What we'll do is we'll crack it in that grain mill so that it exposes the core on that without really grinding anything up. And that is so important. And also, if you're actually in the shop, do yourself a favor. If you're not sure if you're gonna like cooking with that particular grain, well, for heaven's sake, taste one of them. You don't know what it's gonna taste like until you taste it. And when you taste it, it's gonna taste like that in your beer, okay? Now, that's how it works. Now, Kelly, I notice your store is just loaded up with all kinds of malted grains here. What is malt? What does that mean?
Well, malt is barley, which has been malted, so the conversion has started, but then they stopped the process. So when you buy it, all you have to do is crack it and raise the temperature in some hot water and complete the conversion of the starches in the malt into fermentable sugar.
So that's basically when we're playing with our enzymes and getting that to convert those starches to sugar.
Right, that's exactly right. And you'll notice all these different bags, and all these bags right here mostly are what we call base malts, because advanced home brewers will need 10 to 20 pounds to make 5 to 10 gallons. And we sell it at about a 20% discount if you buy it by the bag, as opposed to buying it by the pound. And so we keep plenty of bags of base malt available for purchase for home brewers.
Now, I see there's also some differences. There's this 2-row malt and 6-row malt. Which one is going to be better? Which one do I want to look at, and why?
Well, it depends on the beer you're going to make. That's a good question. So some of the base malts, there's Pilsners, there's lager malt, there's 2-row malt, there's 6-row malt. Don't forget the high kiln malts like Vienna and Munich malts. Those are all considered base malts, and those have all been malted slightly different to give slightly different flavor profiles.
And when they're malting them different, that's like different temperatures they malted
Different
at
temperatures for different lengths of time.
Okay, that's really cool.
And also affects the color. You'll also notice on all the malts that you purchase, in order to design your recipe to give you the color that you're looking for, it's very important that you pay attention to what's known as the Lavabon, or SRM. That's the color rating of the malt. If I'm making a pale ale, I'm not going to buy roasted barley that has a 500 degree Lavabon when a pale ale's only sitting around 10 or 12 SRM max, or Lavabon max. Why am I adding something that's going to give 500 degrees Lavabon? And there was a gentleman named Lavabon, like Celsius or Fahrenheit, that came out with a color rating for the barleys, so when someone's designing their recipe, they can get all the ingredients they want, and then they can figure out by a little math what color, and predict the color of the beer that they're going to make.
So guys, what they're doing is here, they take some of this and they roast it. And the longer they roast it and darker it gets, the higher that Lavabon number gets. It gives you darker, more coffee or cocoa-like flavors. It's a little more stringent, a little more acidic. And that's where you get those dark beers like your porters and your stouts and things like that. It's really cool stuff. Anything else you want to add to your barley here? other than water and hops?
Well, the thing about the barley is, again, there's only 4 ingredients in beer, but they keep making new barleys, keep developing new barleys, keep coming up with new techniques of malting the barley that gives all different types of colors and flavors.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, that's why the beer is infinite in its computations of what you can make. I'm running out of room. As you notice, these head packs, I don't have room on my shelf as they keep developing newer and newer malts that all the homebrewers want to play around with, new ingredients, if you will, to try to make that perfect beer, that flavor profile that they're looking for.
So guys, as you can see, there's so many different choices. You're going to be making a lot of batches.
When you think you've done it all, you haven't. Just wait a month and there'll be new stuff for you to play with.
And that is just so cool, man. This is a fun industry, and it just keeps growing. It gets better every single day.
And it's fun to drink any mistake you made.
This is true. I mean, I've never had a bad beer. I've had some that didn't turn out the way I wanted, but I never had a bad one.
That's right.
So I tell you what, let's go over here and look at some of our other goodies, some of the equipment, and other items that we use, like for sanitation and affecting the way beers are fermented and bottled and other things.
Okay.
So guys, it's not all about the grains. Sometimes you're going to need other stuff. Let's say you're making a beer that has a tendency to have a lot of particulate matter and may have a haze in it. What do you do to take care of that problem, Kelly?
Well, there's a lot of additives and spices and other things you see here on the shelf to choose from to influence the character of your beer, including that age-old issue of what we call chill haze or a protein haze in your beer. And what we use for that, you won't believe it, it's commonly referred to as Irish moss, but it's red seaweed. Now, how they knew to use seaweed in beer, but they did, and we use Irish moss, which helps as what we know as a kettle coagulant, which helps precipitate out proteins in your beer, so your final product can be clear and free of any chill haze or protein haze.
Cool.
There's a lot of other stuff you see up here, and different spices, licorice, lemon, lime, cinnamon sticks, but there's a lot of other things that influence one of the 4 ingredients in beer, which is water. And you can change your water profile, which dramatically changes the flavor of your beer.
Mineral content.
Yes. If I wanted to make a beer from Munich, Germany, and it wanted to taste exactly like the beer from Munich, Germany, I need the water to taste exactly like the water, which is vastly different than water here in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of different minerals that we can add back to the water in what we call build our own water. So we'll start with distilled water. We'll add the minerals, and we'll look at the Munich, Germany water chart, and we'll add the minerals to get the parts per million close to that, so we know our beer will taste exactly like that pollen or Oktoberfest we're trying to brew, for example. You also notice over here that there's several cleaners and sanitizers. And remember, the key to this whole hobby is cleaning and sanitizing, and you want a good cleaner and you want a good sanitizer. There's oak chips you can play with. Something very important in beer brewing is what we call nutrients. The yeast needs nutrients for its growth and development. Yeast needs oxygen and nutrients, and this is what they go through in their life cycle before they start feeding on the sugar and making alcohol. This will make them healthy and strong, so you have a complete fermentation.
You get it up and running a little faster and a little better that way, guys. This way a little. Back here we have some of these items for sanitizing, and as he mentioned before, sanitizing is so important in this because, you know, if you guys get that off, it's just going to be off. Your beer is going to be a little bit funky, so always focus hard on that, and the rest of it gets really easy from there. Okay, let's take a look over at our hops and yeast and kind of discuss options on that.
Okay.
Now guys, before we get started talking about the hops themselves, I wanted to show you, I don't have any hop cones here, but I still have some of the leaves that are left over from behind some of those. And some of these are kind of in a partially whole condition still. They're kind of like this. But anyway, that hop flower, very leafy little green flower is all it is. They have a beautiful odor to them too, guys. The hops, banging good. One of my favorite things is the enjoyable odor that comes from the hops before I go ahead and cook that up in the beer. And Kelly has also some of these hop pellets, And as you can see here, if you want to bring your hand up a little bit, Kelly, right up to that camera. As you can see, guys, the pellet itself, that's what they just compressed, was those leaves into that little pellet. And these, trust me, oh man, it smells good. These are exactly what you want to be using. They work really good. Now, we'll notice in here we have all of these hop packages, and there's all kinds of different flavors. And it depends, again, what kind of beer do you want to make as to what kind of flavor that you're going to get from these. It's just up in the air. But Kelly, kind of give us some overall flavor profiles of 2 or 3 of these.
Sure. So I usually break it down into 4 major hop regions, if you will. There's American hops, which seem to be very citrusy, and they're what we call the C hops. Cascade, which also can include the Amarillo, which we discussed earlier, but Centennial, Chinook, Citra, but we also have classic hops from England, which is your East Kent Golding and your Fuggles, which are more floral or earthy flavors. And then you have your European hops, or your German hops, also referred to as noble hops. Those can go anywhere from spicy to floral characteristics as well, like your German Hallertau, your Hirschbrucker, your German Tettenang, and then Czech Saaz. If anybody's had a Pilsner or 12, you know what Czech Saaz tastes like. It's more of a spicy character. And we have 50 plus different hops from around the world, and we get them in the pellets. I can get them in the leaf, but pellets were invented to store 10 times better than leaf. Nothing's better than leaf, but you have to be there when they harvest it, and it's hard to keep those fresh.
Guys, this is the truth on this, okay? This is the absolute truth. When it comes down to these hops, you definitely want to use the pelletized type hops, because when it keeps, like he said. The ones that are fresh, they dry quickly, they kind of fall apart, they lose their flavors, their oils very quickly. So unless you get them just sparkling fresh, it's not really the best way to go.
Poor storage ability is what we call, but going through a process to pelletize them, you suffer a little bit, but you're not there to get the fresh hop.
True.
By the time a home brewer sees the hop, they could be 3, 4, 6 months old. These are going to be a lot fresher, less expensive, and take up far less room in your freezer. An ounce of leaf versus an ounce of pellets. And if you think about it as a brewery, they don't have to store hundreds of pounds of leaf, they can store hundreds of pounds of pellets.
Right.
They're also more effective as bittering because you've concentrated them into a pellet form. So you actually need about 10% more of the leaf if you used them as a bittering hop than you would as a pellet hop, because these are concentrated. That's a rule of thumb, 10 to 20% more.
Aren't they a little more expensive fresh? Or
and then they're more expensive because they have to be stored and vacuum sealed, and they take up more room, and they're less effective as a bitterer. So it's a double whammy on you as far as cost and freshness.
Right. And of course over here we have all kinds of yeast. Again, profiles, flavor profiles come from our yeasts as much as they do from our hops and from our grains, guys.
There is just a plethora of different yeast to choose from. It comes in a freeze-dried form known as dry yeast, and it also comes in liquid cultures. Liquid cultures have a far larger range of flavor profiles to choose from, but dry yeast is making leaps and bounds as the scientists are able to isolate and make a pure dry yeast form. Never be afraid of dry yeast. They are excellent. You may not have the selection that you do in the liquid yeast, but liquid yeast has been around forever, and it's proven, and it's a pure yeast culture. But the dry yeast have becoming a long, long way. It's less expensive, and it stores much longer than the liquid yeast cultures.
And guys, having tried both of these and used them a lot, I still use both. There's sometimes when I want the liquid yeast, and other times when I want the dry yeast, and I get the exact same quality of fermentation from both of them, and exactly the flavors I'm looking for from each of them. You're just going to have to experiment with a few of them. Start basic, kind of work your way up.
And there's nothing wrong with either one as long as you're getting the flavor profile from the yeast that you're looking for. If you need to go to liquid yeast to get that exact flavor profile, go with the liquid yeast. If you can find it in a dry yeast, I encourage you to use the dry yeast.
Hey guys, when it comes to making beer also, if there's a certain type of beer that you just like drinking all the time, I guarantee you, somebody's made a clone of that beer, and it's probably an awful darn close clone, if not dead on exact. So.
Yeast is what's going to eat the sugar and produce the alcohol. There's 3 byproducts of fermentation, what we call fermentation, and one is the alcohol, the other one's the CO2 gas, but what most people forget is the flavor. A Hefeweizen yeast, when it eats the sugar, is going to produce those characteristics, the esters and the banana and the clove and the bubble gum, okay? And if you try to make a Hefeweizen with a Sierra Nevada type yeast, a clean neutral L yeast, it ain't going to be a Sierra Nevada pale, or it's not going to be a Hefeweizen. Yes. So there's a plethora of different yeast strains that give you all kinds, Trappist flavors, Oktoberfest flavors, English ale pub draft flavors, Hefeweizen flavors. So it's very important if you're trying to brew a certain beer style that you choose the appropriate yeast, and if you can't find it in the dry form, you can find it in the liquid form.
Cool. Well guys, there's our ingredients. We talked about our water, our grains, some malt extract, hops, yeasts. It's wonderful. Everything you can imagine right in these fabulous little stores. And hey, this is a good one if you ever want to order from one if you don't have one online, okay? Or if you don't have one in your town, definitely check this out online, okay?
And you're always welcome to call us. We have an 800 number, 966-4144, or you can call us at 972-234-4411. We're always happy to help anybody out, whether you buy from us or not. Please support your local homebrew shop. But if you have any questions, we'll be glad to help you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this show, and well, we'll see you on the backside, okay?
Let's get a beer.
Ooh, that's a good idea. There it is, guys. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. Wonderful little store. We have seen those cans that are sort of the canned soup version of beer making. And then we've seen those big blue tubs. They're actually barrels of malt extract. And that's Breus malt extract is what they sell there. It's really, really good stuff. The base malts, all of those roasted malts, the crystal malts, guys, what choices. The thing of it is it's like when you're making a batch of soup. Do you use every single vegetable that's in the market? Well, heck no, there wouldn't be enough space in the pot. You have to pick which ones you want to make whichever kind of soup that you want. It's sort of the same way. You've got to pick out of all of that which ones you want for whichever kind of beer that you're going to produce. And they sell everything for every beer there is. So you've seen the choices. There's a lot of them. And the people that are available that do home brewing, just whether they're available by phone or online or in person even, are going to really help you out with this. So keep in touch on Texas Cooking Today. Please pay attention to what we're going to be teaching in this brewing series, because I'm going to bring you guys so much information about brewing, and it'll give you a really good start. I'm not going to teach you everything there is to know, because this is a massive hobby that goes far deeper than I have time or ability to delve into on just this show. In fact, someone could do an entire YouTube channel devoted to this and talk about a different subject each week that is beer related, and it would just be almost endless. So I'll tell you what, thank you very, very much for watching this episode of Texas Cooking Today. And if you would, please click that like button. It does help me a great deal in the rankings. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And to my subscribers, guys, I would like to say thank you very much, and get ready. I want to teach you some things about brewing. Folks, one last thing, if you would, please just have a good day. Bye-bye.